don't mess with America.
Welcome back. President Trump is back in Washington after his trip to the G7 summit in France. It comes on the heels of last week's back and forth with China over new tariffs and some indications of a potentially weakening economy stateside. Let's talk about it all with Alex Vogel, CEO of the Vogel Group, who's up late with me on the Final Five for the very first time. Alex, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to me here. We had the G7 just to wrap up. I know that there was always a lot of anticipation, a lot of trepidation in the early days of the Trump administration, seeing how he'd interact on a world stage. What was your take of the weekend?
Look, there's no doubt the president does these very differently than most previous presidents. What's good and I think productive about this one is both the media and, frankly, world leaders now understand how the president operates. They're more used to and comfortable with his go-it-alone strategy, so they aren't so shell-shocked. There wasn't any drama over whether or not he would sign the communique. Frankly, it sounds like the French didn't anticipate he would anyway, so they had kind of worked that out in the front end, and I think things went relatively smoothly.
We know the president has a good relationship, it seems, with Emmanuel Macron, Boris Johnson as well. They seem like two old friends getting together to share some laughs and talk. We also saw a change in tone for the president here, because last time, one of the first things he said afterwards was Justin Trudeau called him dishonest, went for that. But this time around, he said some things about President Xi of China, calling him a great leader. He went out of his way, it seems, to praise some of his colleagues there. What's the game plan with that moving forward?
Well, two things. One, when you refer to the last time when after it was over, they put out a statement, the president got very angry, took to Twitter. It didn't play very well for anybody, so I think he wasn't going to do that again. And I think the president's negotiating style in this context, in the North Korean context generally, is to praise people while he's negotiating through difficult circumstances, and I think you saw that with the Chinese this time.
When it comes with negotiations, the president also pointed out over the weekend, he seems to be softening a little bit when it comes to Iran. He said he would meet with Hassan Rouhani, obviously with some conditions moving forward. That's a big change, and clearly that favors, I would say, both sides. But you also have to wonder, if you're Israel, if you're Benjamin Netanyahu, how that plays with one of your closest allies.
Well, I don't think the Israelis have any doubt where this president is in terms of dealing with Iran. He's been very forceful in backing them up on the commercial side, on the defense side. There's no softening there. I do think it was productive that the president apparently, when asked by Macron whether the Iranians could attend and have some sideline meetings, the president didn't object. He appreciated the fact that they asked him, and so hopefully that was a productive development. But again, I don't think that indicated any softening of the president's position.
Okay. When we look at the president as it pertains to Vladimir Putin, that was a big talker over the weekend. The fact that it used to be the G8, now it's the G7. He would like to see Vladimir Putin, he would like to see Russia back involved with the group in some way, shape, or form. There seems to be pushback from the other countries, but when this is hosted in the United States, likely it is Doral Golf Course, he can invite Putin, he can invite Russia as a guest, not necessarily back into the group.
Yeah, that's true. When the president hosts next year, the host country has a lot of flexibility in terms of who they invite and a lot of deference. And the president may very well do that. I mean, one of the things we have learned about this president's negotiating style is, notwithstanding some very hardline positions on issues, he is very willing to talk. There's a reason he's the first president to directly engage with the North Koreans. That's why his willingness to talk to the Russians, talk to the Iranians potentially, is not terribly surprising.
Before we let you go, on this Monday, this comes after a very eventful end of the week last week when it comes to China, the back and forth with the tariffs, the dip in the Dow. Things changed a bit today, and it seems like we're getting a better indication about how those pertain to the markets, at least in the interim.
They did. It's interesting to see how sensitive to those comments the markets have become. Obviously, they liked what they saw coming out of this conversation and the call for calm, if you will. Again, it's a good example of the markets seem to react very strongly to short-term news. Fundamentally, nothing has changed in the U.S. negotiating position vis-a-vis these tariffs, or delaying them, or resolving them, and yet the market appreciates the fact that the Europeans and others asked the president, urged the president to be careful with these negotiations, and the president has called for calm, and so far that's a good sign.
We're going to see how it all plays out. Alex Vogel, I appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining me for the first time tonight. Hopefully we'll have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Back after this in the Final Five.